Good evening. Good evening. There we go. We're going to need some interaction tonight, and we're going to need some energy because to handle the issues that we are facing, we need active participation and we need attentiveness. As I said, my name is Jim Jefferson. I've been a freeholder. Next week will make 3 years. And in this job, it's a part-time job, and I really didn't know all that it entailed before I got on. And when I started the job, they gave me the Health and Human Services Department, and it was a quick education for me. And in that role, I have the medical examiner under my purview, and in the beginning, I started to hear stories about the losses that we had in our county. In that first year, 2015, not that long ago, we saw 65 drug overdose deaths in this county. I think about that and think of all those lives and how they've touched somebody. They touched their family, their friends, their neighbors, their relatives. And you think of the ripple effect that every one of those lives touches. So I got together and I talked to some of the folks that had been in government before and said, well, what are we doing? How are we helping people? What outreach are we doing? And I don't mean to be foolish, but literally before I started, there was little to no outreach on county government side. And I just said, you know, look, this isn't enough. People are hurting, people are dying, and we need to do more. So I gathered together some of the folks you will hear tonight, and we said, hey, look, we need to get our heads together. We need to get folks from business and education and healthcare, and we need to talk about how we can get people help. And in that first year, we saw 65 deaths. The toughest part of my job is to say that last calendar year, we had 126. Some people don't like numbers, and some people don't like to talk about only the deaths. I don't only focus there, but to me, that number is staggering to think 126 deaths in a county of our size when we only have 24 towns. That's almost 5 deaths per town. So for all the work that we're doing, the problems are getting tougher. But I believe the good's going to win here. I believe that we're not going to be tired. I believe that when we come together, I believe that there's power. And just a word of caution for somebody, I don't come from the recovery background. I've actually, just for all honesty, I've never had a drug or alcohol in my whole life. And for one word of caution, what I think we need to do is get away from, hey, look, you don't know my experience and I don't know your experience. If our hearts are all focused on getting people help, if our hearts are all focused on saving lives, I think we can do more than talking about our differences. Recovery, one thing I've learned, recovery is not the same for any two people. So your way to recover is different from their way to recover. You believe in MAT or you don't believe in MAT. Different doesn't mean better. Different doesn't mean worse. It's just that it's different. So if someone recovers different than you, encourage them in their recovery. We don't all need to look the same. We don't need all to recover the same. You should be glad you don't look like me. I have freckles and I'm going bald. And a recovery isn't going to look the same either. And for no two people should it. But we have to be in the business, I'm going to say this again, we have to be in the business of stop focusing on our differences and focus where we're common. And that should be a heart to save people. The toughest part that I struggle with is the education side, and that people still believe to this day that we don't have these problems here. That this drug problem, this drug epidemic, pandemic, whatever word you want to use to describe it, well, that's somewhere else, somebody else, other kids, not ours. That's the toughest part for me to hear. These are our friends. These are our neighbors. These are our loved ones. Last year in those 126 deaths, we see every race. We see both genders. We see rich. We see poor. We see young and we see old. We had an overdose death of somebody in their 80s. This thing does not discriminate, and neither should we. We should try to want to help however many people we can, however we can. And that's going to look different for everybody. I'm going to give you, I don't like to give homework, but I want to challenge you a little. Is there anything different that we can do as individuals? I know the government gets asked to do a lot. That's fine. I think government should do a lot, but I don't believe government has the solution. I believe government should be a part of the help, not the solution. But is there anything we can do as individuals? I believe words matter. How we talk to somebody who's in recovery, how we describe people in recovery, those things matter. Can we change our words about how we describe people? Stigma sucks. I hate to be so frank. But some people who are hurting don't want to step forward because of how they'll be described. That's a world we shouldn't live in. I come from a background in ministry. I come from a background of prison ministry. I've traveled this country over, and I minister in prisons all over this country. That's just what I do. I use sports as a way to get in. I believe we all screw up. Your screw-ups might be different than mine, and your screw-ups might have different consequences than mine. But there's no one that can say we don't screw up. We all do. So right now, a lot of people are struggling with this disease. Let's stop labeling them, and let's just try and get each other help. Who cares? Who cares the ways of old, the days of old, the words of old? We have to bury some words. We have to bury some terms and never use them again. God doesn't make junk, so I don't believe anybody should be called junk. Our words matter. Is there any way we could use our words to build a more positive today? I don't want this meeting tonight just to be another meeting a great meeting. I'm telling you, there's some heavyweight speakers you're going to hear from today. Heavyweight. I don't want this just to be another meeting, another reason we came out to Williamstown Auditorium to get together, have some nice food, see some old friends, smile and shake hands. This really should be a time where we do some inventory of ourselves. Hey, how can I help in any way? Whether it be an individual, whether it be in community outreach, whether it be volunteering my time, or could it be in just how you talk to people or talk about people? Are there new ways you should think about things? People from all different backgrounds are going to share this podium. Medical professionals, life coaches, law enforcement. It's rare that you have an issue where all these folks from different walks of life can agree on one thing. That should motivate you to want to do something. I don't want this night just to be another night. The toughest part for me, 2 weeks into this year, we already lost 9 people. That hurts. At some point, our humanity should come together, should bring us all together and say, we've got to stop the pain. Harm reduction is a big phrase right now. Harm reduction is being spread all over the news, especially in light of what's going on in Philadelphia. Whether you agree with it or not, harm reduction is key. Well, people are dying, and we have to reduce that. Whether you agree in MAT or Suboxone, whatever, leave that all aside. We all know that people need to be saved. People need to live a life that's sober, pro-social, healthy. And how that looks for them and how that looks for us, it doesn't need to be the same. One of the biggest battles I fought on the Freeholder Board is working to get Narcan into the hands of all law enforcement personnel and EMS. There were towns that said, you know what, we don't need that liability. I can thankfully say that all 24 town police departments and all of our EMS do carry Narcan. I'll clap for that. Sergeant LaRusso, who you hear from, had a big hand in that. But that was a big lift. That didn't come easy. And while our hearts might be aligned where we say, hey, that should be small, just be aware these things aren't easy. It takes work. See, the problem is, like I said, I am in ministry. I'm a Baptist, and I'm a politician too. So when you give me a microphone, I start to get like in that Sunday morning mode where I feel like, yeah, my adrenaline's going. I'm feeling good. If somebody said amen, I might take off my coat. All right, all right. Folks, I don't know what else to tell you, but my heart breaks when I see so much devastation. But we can't just talk about it. We've got to be spurred on into action. And you're going to hear from people that act very, very strongly in their field. Listen to what they say. Think about their message. Let's come together, leave our differences aside, and work to save lives. Thank you, and God bless you.